Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the YASH Technologies for SAP virtual webinar series. Really excited for today's topic, and I was sharing with our panelists, Marty Groover and Martin Newell, of all the webinars that we've done for YASH Technologies and C5MI over the past 6 months or so. I can say without a doubt, this is the single most exciting topic that we've gotten to cover off on. And the reason that is, it's not every day that we get to talk about a solution that is as much on the cutting edge of technology as the digital reliability centered maintenance solution that we're going to talk today, or you'll hear it referred to, because everybody likes acronyms, you'll hear it referred to as DRCM over and over and over again. So when you hear DRCM, think digital reliability centered maintenance. And when we talk about being on the cutting edge, and I don't want to steal Marty and Martin or the M&M gang's thunder here, but really what it's all about with the cutting edge, what it's, when we talk about the cutting edge of DRCM, it is an SAP approved prepackaged solution. And at this point in time, YASH Technologies and C5MI and C5MI at the forefront of the creation of the DRCM technology. We're the only ones in the world that have it in this form. So when you're witnessing today's webinar, take away those pearls of wisdom that you can use within your enterprise right now to start realizing value and getting into those ways to predict your maintenance needs and maximize your uptime as we go forward. So as we go through today's webinar, we like to break it down into like chapters of a book. And those chapters for today is first and foremost, because it is cutting edge and brand new, we need to define DRCM, or digital reliability centered maintenance. What is it? What drives it? Why is it so special? And quite honestly, why do you need it? And then from there, we'll move to chapter 2, and that will be the success stories. How have we been using it? Because it's important for you to know, although it's new, it's not so new that it hasn't been tested and proven in a real world situations, because it has been, and we'll share some of those success stories with you. And then finally, the final chapter, or chapter 3, is why now? Why is this solution something that you should be considering with your valuable spend that might be available for you to use in Q4, or especially as we move into Q1 of 2021? And we'll spend dedicated time isolating why this is something that you need to take seriously, and why this is something that you should be talking about within your enterprise as we move towards the months to come. So with that said, as we set up and we define what DRCM is, and then we take you through the rest of the webinar, we wanted to do a level set. We really valued putting the story together effectively. And as we've all gotten caught up in the virtual situations that we find ourselves in, the perpetual webinars, we wanted to take this back and give you the thought of going to the last trade show that you were at. Maybe that was Sapphire back in 2019, which seems like so long ago now. But think about, you're walking around the trade show at Sapphire, and you're rubbing elbows with colleagues that you might know, you're chit-chatting about things, and then you stumble across this booth. And great big LED screen that says YASH Technologies and C5MI, and you think, hey, I'm going to stop in and see what these ladies and gentlemen have to talk about. And you meet Marty Groover or Martin Newell, and they start talking to you about this thing called DRCM. And you're thinking, well, what in the world is DRCM? And quite honestly, what would happen at that point in time, if you were at the booth at YASH Technologies at Sapphire, we'd show you a video. We'd let the video do the talking for us. We wanted to bring that experience to all of our webinar attendees today, because the C5MI team has put together an incredible teaser video for DRCM, and it can say it better than any of us will. And these gentlemen are the experts, so I'm giving the video a lot of credit. So if you would just bear with me, and I'm going to take you through the video and let you get the first taste of DRCM, and then we'll turn it over to Marty and Martin for a further explanation.
Revolutionize your processes with digital reliability centered maintenance. Every organization believes its production methodology is unique. While underlying details may be different, all manufacturing organizations face similar maintenance asset challenges. Siloed information leads to incoherent data and lacks a single version of the truth. This generally accepted run-to-failure approach only addresses immediate impact, resulting in increased maintenance cost and volatility. Without a proactive maintenance approach, equipment breaks down without warning, leading to unplanned downtimes. This can result in increased operational cost and quality defects, ending in low yield and throughput. The C5MI DRCM solution architecture and implementation methodology, blended with accelerators, will address these challenges and drive transformation across the asset maintenance lifecycle. Our best practices in equipment hierarchy definition plays a vital role in driving transformation across the plant maintenance ecosystem. DRCM brings together equipment-related information and all stakeholders. This establishes a collaborative, single version of the truth as the asset common operational picture. Our expertise in accelerators in risk and criticality, as well as failure modes and effects analysis, will help drive a lean maintenance strategy across any manufacturing enterprise. Expertise in equipment hierarchy, coupled with our robust CBM template, will set the stage for asset digital twin, condition-based monitoring, and predictive maintenance. Using the mobile-enabled DRCM solution will deliver increased worker efficiency and data accuracy. C5MI experts are trusted business practitioners with decades of experience managing plant maintenance systems, shop floor operations, and manufacturing supply chains for Fortune 100 organizations across the globe. We architected DRCM with a futuristic vision of aligning organizations to the Maintenance 4.0 roadmap by merging people, process, and technology. Let us bring your manufacturing maintenance execution into the next century and beyond.
Thanks everybody for taking a couple minutes to view the C5MI DRCM promotional video. Before I turn it over and like I said, let Marty and Martin get into the nuts and bolts of what makes DRCM incredible, want to just pause real quick and do a round of introductions. For those of you that haven't been on a YASH Technologies or C5MI webinar in the past few months, my name is John Gretter. I'm Vice President of the SAP service line for YASH Technologies and C5MI. I've also been moderating quite a few of the YASH Technologies and C5MI webinars. Really happy to be able to join all of you today, but without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues, Marty Groover and Martin Newell, and let them introduce themselves. And then I'll be turning it over to Marty for a little bit of a deeper explanation of what DRCM is all about. So with that said, Martin, introduce yourself, and then we'll move to Marty. And Marty, after you do your introduction, go right into what is DRCM and give us that deeper understanding of it. So Martin, introduce please first.
Yeah, thanks a lot, John. So as you mentioned, my name is Martin Newell. My career just pretty much spent a lot of time as a machine tool provider, and then worked for a large manufacturing corporation as a maintenance engineer. Lived and died on that shop floor trying to keep equipment running, and got frustrated with the IT folks and decided to jump into the IT space, and then looked for a next opportunity where I joined C5MI, and I'm currently the director for the Enterprise Asset Management Group.
Thanks, Martin. Marty, on to you.
Yeah. Hey, good afternoon. Thanks, John. Marty Groover. I'm a partner for C5MI, and I'm a retired Navy officer. I spent 21 years in the Navy, and then I was fortunate enough to work for a large industrial manufacturing company for 12 and a half years. During that time, I got to also work in maintenance and really understand the issues that affect manufacturing by maintenance. A couple years ago, I left and started this company, C5MI. I'm probably one of the luckiest people in the world because I get to do this job every day. I get to go out and help customers solve these problems that I always had when I was a manufacturing person and working on the shop floor. One of the things about C5MI I think is special is in everything we do, we challenge the status quo. We believe in taking complex problems and making them simple by creating a single source of truth that converges people, process, and technology into that common operational picture. And we do that through 4 different business lines. I have a digital manufacturing group that works with digitizing everything underneath the factory umbrella. We have a model called Live Factory that we use for that because we believe everything should be live on the shop floor. As Martin said, we have an enterprise asset management group. It's all about making your equipment run better and getting better business results. Then I have an operational intelligence group, and that I really like that group. They're interesting. We have real-time location tracking systems, and that's really where the people and process get converged with the technology. And then our other business line is a straight, we call it Lean 4.0, but it allows us to do, because we really know process is important. And if you have a bad process, you can put technology on it all you want, and it doesn't improve the process. So that's a little bit about me. Now let's talk about digital reliability center maintenance, something that's near and dear to my heart after spending 21 years in the Navy working on weapon systems. And one of the things I can tell you, my experience in the military is I could never go up to the captain and say, I don't really understand why that missile didn't fire, sir. Everything had to work first time, every time. And we had a lot of predictive maintenance systems that were based off failure mode analysis. So I was really deep into reliability center maintenance as basically the chief engineer for the weapon systems on my ships. I brought that into the industrial manufacturing space. And what I found is it really wasn't a good way to capture those failure modes. And if you try to do maintenance and it's always run to fail, you're always in a tail chase, and the cost of maintenance is high, and the impact to your manufacturing is also high. So when we looked at digital reliability center maintenance, we said these tools that we've kind of been on the forefront with SAP developing are the tools that I always wanted. They're the system that would codify those failure modes to really start looking at what should I be looking at sooner and predicting it so I don't run to fail. It tells me I'm going to have a failure before it happens. A little story about failure modes to help you understand it. I had a BMW X5, and this was a perfect example of great German engineering using failure modes. I'm driving up the interstate one day, and all of a sudden the car slows down to 45 miles an hour. I'm like, what's going on? Interesting thing is, over the cell phone, over the speaker system, a technician comes on and says, Mr. Gruber, we noticed your car has slowed down to 45 miles an hour. We got a signal from your car. Don't worry about it. It's not going to blow up. Your frequency on your water pump is acting up. So what we're going to do is turn your car off, turn it back on. You should be able to drive. If it happens again, you're safe to turn it off, turn it on. 45 miles up the road, we have a BMW dealership that's waiting for you, and they're going to change out your water pump. And I was thinking, wow, that's amazing. That's what we all want in our lives. Tell me something's going to fail before I'm not stranded on the road, or I need something and it's going to break. And that's really the genesis of digital reliability center maintenance. How do I look at all the ways that my equipment can fail? And then do I have a way to measure it and tell me before it fails? So that was the key piece of that. Now, the other part that we looked at is SAP is a powerful tool for SAP plant maintenance. I know in my factory, I used it and I was able to improve the reliability, the quality, but also my financial outcomes of my maintenance systems by religiously using that PM system. The thing that I thought was most powerful about digital reliability center maintenance, why we really bought into it and have been helping develop it for the last few years, is we always needed that tool that would integrate. So we could pull those maintenance results, all those run to fail tickets, all that rich data that's there out, and integrate it with our maintenance strategy. The Intelligence Asset Management Suite that SAP has created has 3 very important tools to help you with your maintenance. And through that integration with SAP PM really creates an unbelievable maintenance platform. Now, the tools that we have with the IAM suite are Asset Information Network. That provides all the information about your equipment. Imagine the hierarchy of it, what type of model it is. You can even attach your maintenance drawings, documents, parts. Everything about that is an essential data hub. Then you have a system called Asset Strategy Performance Management. That's the heart of the system. It takes that hierarchy, categorization of your equipment, the criticality analysis of it, just like your car, just like the story about the BMW. You know what? A water pump's pretty important. How do we get to the top of the list? create failure modes on it, and then what are we going to measure on that so that we see those failures, and then collect all the data about the maintenance. So we put a maintenance strategy in place, and we create that plan, do, check, act, the whole dream of what John Morby created when he created the Reliability Center Maintenance book way back in the early 80s and late 70s. Then the other part of it, and the most critical, the heartbeat, is the predictive maintenance system that connects to all the sensors and can tell you, based on data science, machine learning, all sorts of different things in that workbench for those maintenance engineers, what's going on with your equipment. So when you do get an indicator that something's happening, you can contextualize it. You can go look at that time run series data and really understand, what should I do about it? So John, that's a little bit of background of why we created DRCM.
And what I love the most, Marty, was your story about how your BMW X5 told you had a problem, told you that there was a dealer waiting for you in 45 minutes, and you were able to get your car fixed without being stranded on the side of the road. And where my mind goes with that story and the other stories that I've heard you and Martin share about DRCM, it really comes down to that notion of maximizing uptime, or look at it the cup half empty, limiting downtime. And in today's day and age, with what we're dealing with the forced shutdowns that a lot of industries were coming off of as a result of the COVID pandemic, the margin for errors is at an all-time low. Businesses, manufacturing especially, cannot afford untimed downtime. We are unplanned downtime. They can't afford that right now. So that's why when we talk about it, and I'm jumping ahead to when I said the last chapter, the why now, but as a teaser, how can DRCM, and we'll dive into this further, how DRCM can greatly extend or put value on your uptime and limit that downtime. And that's why this is the right tool for the times that we're in right now. At the beginning of this, when I was kicking it off, I made mention of how DRCM is really the only tool like it in the world right now. And if I was a viewer in our virtual audience, I'd say, well, that's a bold statement. You know, there's a lot of competitors, a lot of partners out there that are doing things, and you're saying that C5MI and YASH Technologies has the only one. Explain to me, Marty, why we can make that statement, that DRCM is the only solution like this in the world.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say we staked that because we went out and got a trademark, a registered trademark. We believe so strongly that our digital reliability center maintenance solution and the processes that we have were so powerful and different that we went out and got a patent on it. And guess what? The U.S. Patent and Trade Office agreed with us, and I've got a gold certificate, which is pretty cool to say the DRCM is a unique solution. I think what makes a difference is our approach. Because we know how to do reliability center maintenance, you can have a tool. If you don't understand how to apply that tool is useless. It's a combination of our experience, our process, and how we connect you quickly with these capabilities and drive business value. That's what makes it a wholly different solution. And another thing that makes us different is we have the whole suite in a demonstration system and a development system, along with connected to either SAP ECC or S/4HANA. So we can quickly model scenarios, and Martin's even created a pretty cool pump system that can pull in live data, and we could show you. So, you know, a lot of people in maintenance, they're from Missouri. They like sales pitches, but they want to see it. And that's the difference with us. Our solution is so unique the way we do it. We can show you and tell you why the value's there. But, you know, Martin knows a lot. Martin, tell us, what do you think? Why do you think our solution's different? You got some great opinions on that.
Yeah, I think, you know, for sure, when we look at the SAP solution stack, that's all about systems integration. I really think where DRCM complements that is that focus on the business process integration. So taking those system tools, that tight integration, and then overlaying a really strong and structured methodology and an approach to kind of drive that next maintenance 4.0. Actually, I mean, we talk a lot about industry 4.0, but there's a subset which is really maintenance 4.0. Maintenance 4.0 is basically digitize everything. That's a pretty tall order, but kind of breaking that down into smaller bite-sized pieces. And we look at the tools that maintenance people need. And what they really need is a way to structure that maintenance approach. All maintenance departments, it's not now, it's always been this case. They're always strapped for resources. Even with the resources they've got, you end up with a handful of folks that have that tribal knowledge. It's really about how you can use DRCM, and the way we've structured it is to be able to help those maintenance departments really look at their limited resources and focus on what's the most important equipment. Again, coming from a maintenance background, those production guys, no offense, their equipment is always the most important equipment. Every individual says their equipment is most important to them. It's true. But for the actual factory itself, it's really using these tools to come to an objective conclusion. What is the most risk and critical piece of equipment, and focus your maintenance resources on that. And that's how DRCM, I think, can really makes a difference there. As well as I mentioned, just that kind of the tribal knowledge that all these technicians have. Having now a mechanism where those technicians we can kind of capture that information, put it in a system, and then that system tied against similar pieces of equipment and models can be leveraged not across just a single plant, but across many plants within a corporation. So I think for me, that's where I see DRCM is really different from other things out there.
Yeah, I would agree. That's a great synopsis. I think it's powerful to understand too. The millennials, it's harder and harder to get those technicians. So being able to digitally codify that information is really powerful. So that was a great point, Martin.
And Martin, when you talk about the differentiation of DRCM, again, putting ourselves in the audience's seat right now and thinking what would be going on in their mind, this all sounds good in theory, this all sounds exciting in theory, but if I were in the audience, I'd say, okay, give me some examples of the value of DRCM. You know, John led this thing off by saying, hey, we've actually done it. So share with the audience some examples of the value of DRCM, and after we talk about the value, we'll go then into a deeper dive into some actual success stories around it. But first, just give the definition of the value of the solution.
Yeah, so thanks for kind of setting that up. For sure, we need to really talk about real world examples, and one example with a recent client that we have the solution up and operational. This client has a continuous production process. So when that machine goes down, the factory is down. It's also a very profitable factory from the standpoint they're running 24/7. So any planned downtimes is really golden for them to take that time and energy to really focus on what they need to do to maintain that equipment, to get it back up and operational, to keep that continuous process moving forward. So we work with a client, we introduced DRCM. They had a tremendous amount of data that they were already collecting, vibration data. And the challenge that they had was there was just such a lot of data. Then they needed all these extra resources to basically look through all that data. Again, no extra resources in maintenance that can spend that time to pour through all of that data. And so part of that DRCM solution tied in with the SAP IAM suite, having that capability, they were able to already see a failing motor. So a motor that was potentially going to fail ahead of time. And so they were able to add that to a list of repairs coming up for their next planned outage versus suffering an unplanned event, which nobody wants. And actually from that, just that one instance, that customer is now actively looking to scale out the solution to additional plants across I mean, they were sold just on that one event and that one capability of being able to see an early indication of a failure and address it in a planned approach versus an unplanned approach. And Marty, I'm sure that's just one example I've got. I'm sure you've got other examples that you'd want to share.
Yeah, I think one of the more interesting ones, I went to a factory and they had 11 miles, think about that, a conveyor chain, and they had over 200 switches that were not monitored. They were monitored, but not, they didn't have any way to do condition-based maintenance. And we were able to put a solution in that it allowed them to count the number of activations, because there's only so many activations in one of those switches before they die. And by putting in our solution, they were able to see that they're going to have failures and plan their replacements when they had downtime instead of waiting for it to run to fail, because that critical path paint system is in the middle of their fabs and painting. And we all know that anything that's like that's in the middle of a process is a critical piece of machinery. So that was a pretty powerful value statement. And for them, now they can plan ahead, have the rebuilt switches ready to go, and now they pick and choose when they take those things down instead of the other way around. And it costs a lot of money when you have unplanned downtime with something that big, a big paint system like that. So that was another great use of the system.
And it's a great example of how limiting downtime actually allows for the return on investment. So when you see the power of this tool, it's by avoiding downtime that you, in essence, pay for the solution, pay for the software. If you do have to look at some new software to make this all work, it can become a center that actually drives revenue for your enterprise. And in today's day and age, again, I'm stealing from the why now part of today's webinar, but in today's day and age, the criticality of any solution that you're looking at purchasing with revenues being really tight, you need to be able to see the picture of how can this return revenue, or how can this help the bottom line. And in listening to you gentlemen give these examples, the more we can limit the downtime, or the more we can make sure that we're staying on an uptime situation, we're keeping product coming out the backside of the factory, and that's delivering revenue. And when we don't have that downtime, we obviously don't have that disruption. So as we move to chapter 2, and we've got about 15 to 17 minutes here to get through chapter 2, and then go a little bit deeper into the why now. Share with the audience, and Martin, I'll start with you, some specific success stories that we've had with DRCM, with our client partners right now, and any of those specifics of how it has delivered value and continuing that thread and made this a solution that was a no-brainer to implement, and how they've started small and blown it up even bigger. Those things would be valuable for our audience to hear today. So if you could just lead off our discussion on success stories, I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, sure, John. So I maybe just continue to add further to the example I just gave. So this was a large US corporation that manufactures building materials. In fact, right now they're in the middle of this pandemic. Their business is actually very good because there's lots of people that are staying at home and getting jobs done. So they're going out to Lowe's and Home Depot and buying materials. So this is actually one of those companies that are actually even more desperate to ensure that their equipment is up and operational. So that the challenges that they really had, as I mentioned, obviously it's a continuous flow production. It's those unplanned outages that are really causing those major disruptions. But also being a major corporation with many different plants, have a number of reliability maintenance engineers. So doing the right thing, but each plant very much starting to become siloed in the approach they take, and not really being able to leverage the synergies across a reliability maintenance engineering organization. And so that's another aspect of the DRCM solution, where using that IAM platform, being able to build standardized templates. I mentioned about risk and criticality earlier. So, you know, instead of it being the production supervisor's favorite piece of equipment, there's a logical approach, and that's consistent. And it starts to allow them to look not just at an individual plant, but across a region, a specific area, and start to leverage some of those templates that they've got in place. So that was really helping to start to get a more consistent approach from some of those inconsistencies around asset performance management. So we focused on, with DRCM, integrating their existing operational technology data. As I mentioned, a lot of data available, primarily vibration sensors, and at that, the initial rollout was focused on condition-based monitoring. So looking at sensor thresholds, and based on those sensor thresholds, triggering actual maintenance work. So that's reducing, instead of leveraging the classic time-based PMs, they're able to now reduce the amount of time and energy and cost associated with those time-based PMs, and really focus in on when that piece of equipment needs a preventive maintenance task accomplished. That's when it's triggered. So that's really a kind of additional to what I'd already mentioned. Benefits coming out of that company, and I said they're already on a journey. I mean, they've sold it. The leader that we work with, it's already sold to their senior leadership. Their senior leadership right now is actually challenging him back to say, go faster, go faster. We need this in other plants. But ultimately, the benefits coming out of that is insights to those upcoming component failures. That optimization of having a planned outage. If you're planning for 8 hours of outage, use it. Use every minute of it, because then once you're back in full production, you need that piece of equipment running. So I also kind of want to switch to another example. This is another large US corporation that manufactures agricultural machinery. Their challenges, very similar in some respects. Downtime, just unplanned downtime, costing their business anywhere from 5 to 20% of their overall capacity. They were really struggling to understand where is all of this lost capacity. And in some cases, that wasn't necessarily attributed just to equipment downtime. It was other downtimes unassociated with equipment failures. So a lot of these unplanned events rippling through the factory, and then, I mean, I've got the quote from them. They basically said, "We just need to do more with less." That's the world we live in, day out, especially more now than it's ever been. So in that case, we implemented the DRCM solution again, focusing on integrating their existing paint system sensor data. They had some really sophisticated motor drives. Again, a lot of data available. It just needed to be tapped into and brought into a system that could analyze that data and then provide feedback from an alert perspective, and really tell those engineers and those production folks, this is an area you should really start to look at. As an addition to that, and for sure we're focusing today on DRCM, but that same sensor data, that same communications channel, we also included a OEE, so operational equipment effectiveness capability. And that was to address really looking at what are the other unplanned, or what are the other loss of production time that's out in the operation, outside of just the maintenance equipment failures. So in that case, it's really about improving the visibility of availability, impacting those paint booths. It's really improving the overall utilization. So not just looking at the equipment downtime, but what are the other production downtimes that are ultimately impacting the overall utilization of that paint system. So that's really kind of two, I think, really good, solid examples of where we have put the solutions in place, and the customers are already seeing tremendous benefits coming out of just the pilots that we put in place.
And those are very relevant, and anybody that's in manufacturing can go right there thinking about that storytelling visually in their minds. They can look at their manufacturing line and say, yeah, we've got these instances happening. We know that we have them. They're a thorn in their side, and here's a solution that can help with those. And as I was listening to your success stories there, Martin, it took me back to when Marty was explaining DRCM to me for the first time about 1.5 years ago. And the reason I brought up Sapphire in 2019, that's when I heard about DRCM for the first time. Marty was taking me through the show floor, and he was talking to me about all the really cool things that C5MI are coming with, and DRCM was at the top of his list. And he really boiled it down so I could understand it. And he said, John, here it is in layman's terms. And I appreciated that. You don't drive your car by looking in your rear view mirror, because all you can see in your rear view mirror is what's happened. And there's very little you can do when all you're doing is looking behind you. You really can only react at that point in time. But when we drive our car through the windshield, we see what's coming at us. And if there's a big pothole, we can swerve and we can miss it. We can take corrective action. So that's what DRCM really is. It's allowing you to see out your windshield and take corrective action before you run over the pothole and pop your tire and then cause you to be sitting on the side of the road stranded. We want to keep you on course and get you to your destination on time. And that's the power of DRCM. As you shared the success stories, I go back to what it had to be like since the C5MI team created this tool. There was that proud parent moment, I'm sure, when you were putting it out there in the world for the first time, where you're like, okay, it's either going to work or it's not going to work. It's time to let it go and see if it can walk on its own. And ultimately, because we shared success stories and because we're talking about DRCM to a large audience today, share with us, Martin and Marty, what led this to ultimately be successful?
Yeah, I'll maybe go first. So I think with some of the SAP, the newer technology being cloud-based, that really accelerates the provisioning of the software, so we can get it up and running, get it in people's hands, start to learn how does the tool work, how is it going to fit into their particular environment. It's an SAP system, so highly integrated into the back-end ECC or S4HANA. So again, very flexible. You don't have to be on a specific version of SAP. You don't have to be on their very latest and greatest ERP solution is what I mean by that. And fully supported by SAP. I think the other piece is really easy to integrate with sensor data. And that's probably where a lot of factories would say, you're the same, but where they are unique is that closer and closer, the further you get down to those machines, those sensors, those devices, that's the uniqueness. And so having a really easy mechanism to tap into that data quickly and start seeing results, I think is fundamental to the success. And with that integration to ECC, obviously that ability to automate to create PM notifications. But I'd probably add one more, I think, from just what led to the success, and that's just us internally. C5MI, Marty mentioned his career history, my history. C5MI in general, we are all practitioners that have spent our time in IT and in manufacturing. So we kind of can see both sides. And so I think that's another piece that kind of brings that another level of success, that when we've implemented these solutions, they're hitting the ground running because we've already thought through some of those challenges, both on a manufacturing side and on an IT support side.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think for me, the biggest value also is the integration with SAP, the hierarchy of equipment, how easily it goes back and forth. But those failure modes, I spent a lot of time creating, and Martin and I have done this before, Excel spreadsheet failure mode analysis. And they're good like a broken clock the first time you do them, and then nobody keeps them up to date. But they're so powerful of a tool. And it's not just about the unplanned downtime, because there's an opportunity there. But a lot of people spend a lot of money to get that reliability. And this is where this thing starts getting accretive. You fix that, but now you shift from preventative maintenance, reliability maintenance to try to keep it up. How do I get the bigger chunk is that maintenance budget? It's a big monster usually in a factory. And this tool really helps you understand your budget, understands where you're spending your money, and then how do you put strategies in, because there's free bags of gold in every factory. And whether you choose to do the maintenance or not, it's still there. It's still a liability. So if you can have that historical background, know when you're going to hit a milestone for a rebuild, you can start planning your maintenance budgets instead of getting 1 year you're a hero, the next year you're a zero, because your maintenance budget, you can never tell what was coming your way. So your analogy of driving through the front windshield helps you really understand where your maintenance budgets are and how to be accretive with these investments. And if you do this right, our ROI, we always look at less than a year or even less a lot of times, depending on the machinery, and you get your money right back. But it's not a one-time only payment. It keeps paying over and over. You keep using the tool. It's just a continuous improvement tool that just keeps, it's like the golden goose, just keeps laying eggs for you.
Marty, thank you. And both Martin and Marty, we've got about 3 minutes left because we wanted to tie this up in 45 minutes. So I'm going to skip ahead to that last chapter and that why now, and specifically what makes DRCM relevant today? How can it earn a return on investment? And then really importantly, we talked about this being an SAP approved solution, a prepackaged solution. Why is that so important? So if you would allow me, I'll just break that up and kind of go from one person to the other and let you each take one. But Marty, why is DRCM so relevant today?
I think when you look at Industry 4.0 and where we're going with it, maintenance is going to be more important than ever, because these automated systems, not only maintenance of machines, but the systems on top of it, is going to create a whole system. And you're going to really need to you need to understand that system, because one machine being down in the past may have been an issue, but now all these machines are connected. So any of it being down is going to be an impact. So you really got to get ready for the maintenance requirements that are going to be there for Industry 4.0. This tool helps you get future-proof and lean forward.
Got it. And Martin, then as we move on, we've talked a lot about earning a return on investment, but it's such a critical item in today's economy. Revisit that one last time, because it's important for the audience to absolutely get that this is not an addition to the budget. This is a tool that has an ROI component. So explain to the audience one last time how this actually earns an ROI.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's about reducing those operating costs. It's that overhead, it's that burden. And a lot of factories and production facilities nowadays, especially in these pandemic times, I mean, their volumes aren't where they used to be. So they're really having to look at their margins, and where they look to is their operating costs. And so I think this is where, as I mentioned, if you can have one situation where you can really help mitigate an unplanned failure. I mean, we're talking millions to tens of millions in cost avoidance, depending on the type of industry that people are within.
So again, an incredible way, given the situation that we find ourselves in, to look at a solution, invest in that solution, but very quickly. And I know we can't give an absolute, but you make that commitment to DRCM, or are we looking at that return on investment in a quarter, in a year? Historically, what type of a time frame are we looking at for the ability to see that return on investment, Martin?
So I think from our perspective, we would say within 1 year. I mean, for us, when we get involved in DRCM, that's the goal that we're setting ourselves. I mean, in a lot of cases, it's a lot earlier, but we're trying to really look at that 1 year. That gives us enough time to put the system in, have some soak time, because it's still about the business and learning to adapt to these new tools.
Martin, that's impressive, and I appreciate you sharing that. Marty, last question of the webinar, and then we'll close it up for episode 1 of the YASH for SAP webinar series. This is an SAP-approved solution. Why do we keep talking about that? Why have I brought it up numerous times? Why is it important to us, and why ultimately should it be important to our audience?
I think that when you look at the investments people have made with SAP products, this tool really enhances those investments and allows them to leverage a lot of that effort and toil and sweat they've put into their systems. Now's the time to use it.
So it's maximizing the investment, and in many cases they've already made. Let's just wring out even more value in that and extend the power of the SAP software, because we know from talking to all of our clients, SAP software usually is far more powerful than the clients are actually taking advantage of. So
Absolutely.
These types of tools and solutions just put it on warp speed for them to be able to realize all the value in the investment that they've already made, and a lot of times. And then piggyback that with what Martin just shared, we've got a tool or solution here that oftentimes sees ROI, or what we're shooting for ROI with our clients within 1 year. I mean, think about that. Here's an investment in a solution that you can look at an ROI within 1 year. So with that said, I appreciate everybody, especially appreciate Martin, you and Marty, giving us your time today and walking us through this DRCM tool. For anybody that would like more information on this, we invite you to reach out to me, and I'll get you with the subject matter experts, and we can have a smaller group conversation. And you can reach me at john.gretter@yash.com. That's john.gretter@yash.com. john.gretter@yash.com. Martin, Marty, thank you very much for your time today. And thank you everybody in our audience for tuning in today. We'll look forward to talking to you soon. Have a great week.